Good Saturday morning, everybody out there in Hobbyverse. It's another edition of your Saturday morning podcast, live podcast, call-in show, Hobby Hotline. This is episode 66. Before I introduce our panel today, I want to one of the persons that were supposed to be on the panel this morning, unfortunately, not here. Brody the Kid. Got a little sick, a little under the weather, dealing with some things, and so I just want to send out, the rest of the panel, I'm sure, and everyone else, wishes of recovery. Get well soon, so you can be back on this show, your own show, playing sports, and all that. So, Brody, hope to see you soon. To my right on the screen, Jeremy Lee from Sports Cards Live, and below us, only on the screen level, Mr. Brian Gray, CEO of Leaf. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, John.
All right. So first topic, let's probably the biggest news or one of the biggest stories, if you will, of the weekend. A potential reality show with Goldin Auctions, Ken Goldin. No, very vague in details. It just says there's some money being put into potentially production. I got to think if they're naming people that they're a little more advanced even than that. But just some thoughts. It's not the first time we've had some similar things, just real brief runs, but nothing probably on this level. We all know just in general what the big auction houses are doing the last few years, Goldin even in particular. Like, is this good, bad? What do we think?
I think it's great. I mean, we've got more potential exposure for the hobby. I think that's important for going mainstream even more than we are right now, and there's still a lot of potential there for us to get out there as a hobby. I think it's going to be key to in terms of, is it going to get picked up and how many people are actually going to tune into it, right? Just because you have a show, it still needs to be viewed by people for it to catch on. If it catches on, like, it's the same producers as Pawn Stars, so that's encouraging because they obviously have they created a show in a micro niche sort of setting, and it blew up. And if they use that experience on this show and learn from any mistakes they may have made early along the way with Pawn Stars, I think that's I'm excited. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to see it, and hopefully it reflects reality. Isn't these shows are staged to an extent, as we know. Hopefully it's nice and interesting, and hopefully it represents the hobby in a positive light, which I think it will if Ken has anything to do with it. And people out there start looking through their closets and their basements and their attics even more than they were, during the pandemic. And we bring a lot more people. It brings a lot more people into the hobby, and we could see another bit of a rush.
I think it's phenomenal. I think the subject matter is a winner. We're in the hottest our hobby's ever been. I know there have been some little attempts at things. We had people try to come into Leaf and film the day-to-day at Leaf and try to figure out if there's some craziness and shenanigans. And for that very reason, I said, we're definitely not doing that. You don't show people how the sausage is made sometimes. But no, I think it's phenomenal. I think the cards Ken's dealing with are otherworldly. And I think that people have an appetite for seeing treasures, whatever it is. People watch these old pots on Antique Roadshow. This pot was my grandmother's in 1442. People watch that crap. They're going to definitely watch a $4 million LeBron or a $3 million Trout or a $10 million Wagner when it comes, whatever that looks like. People are going to watch that. And Ken is such an interesting personality. I think he's one of the bigger personalities in the business, and he's got lots to say. I just think, again, I was around in the school board days. I used to go up there all the time. I've seen Ken in the office working in that environment. I can tell you it's going to be fascinating personally, but then I think there's also going to be the treasure element. People just are dying for that treasure element. The key is going to be them finding the right place to put it. I personally think that's on an ESPN 7 or wherever that is, something sports driven versus trying to put it on, what is it? One of the main history or whatever. Where like Pawn Stars was on the History Channel. The customer is so much more sports oriented, but imagine the athletes that come in and bring their trophies and stuff. Imagine, there's just, trust me, there's plenty of, and once he has the show, celebrities will be wanting to consign him stuff just because it's another way to get out there. You'll have reality stars, you'll have all kinds of people who want to be part of it. So it's a winner, guaranteed winner, and great for the hobby.
There's a funny comment from Bobby Baseball. He says it feels like we're already watching Ken's reality show on Instagram. So, like Brian said, he's definitely a personality, colorful to say the least. And piggybacking off something you said, Jeremy, too. I hope it's, I guess the big fear with reality shows, any of them, not just a hobby one, but is, that scripted element that you hope you don't see. You want to see the stuff in reality, in real time. I hope it's not. I know some things they have to sort of recreate, maybe a scene or something that actually happened maybe from the past, but I hope it's not too scripted, like you said, and we get sort of in the moment stuff, which I think is the best stuff when when you almost don't know for sure what's going to happen next. Like Brian said, who walks in, right? I think LeBron James or whoever else at any given moment.
Yeah, I think the interesting parts of it will be the people involved. Of course they're going to get into some of the history on the items, the cards themselves, who the manufacturers were, just like they do on Pawn Stars. They'll tell some stories, but the interesting parts will be who are the consigners, who are the buyers. Because are they going to show live action from the end of an auction when the bids are coming in? Especially when it's all done on the internet. I don't know how they're going to make that into interesting content. I hope they do, because it's very exciting. But I'm looking forward to seeing the people that are consigning and then finding out from them what their stories are in the hobby. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of interesting stuff. And of course, the buyers, and maybe Ken flies out and delivers a 7-figure card to the buyer, and who's the buyer and why did they buy it and what does their house look like and what other cards or items do they own. I think, it reminds me of the $1 Million Listing shows where you see who the buyers of these homes are and where they're going and what they're buying and what cars they're driving around in. I mean, there's so much more to it than just the items. And again, it's going to be sensational. And as Brian said, Brian says this is going to be a winner. I mean, it's a winner for me. It'll be a winner for me, that's for sure, because it's the hobby that I grew up in, that we all grew up in, that we all have loved our whole lives. And now we're finally going to get to see it on TV. So I'm very excited for it.
For sure.
Yeah, it'd be interesting, like Brian says, what channel actually runs it. And then, are we going to see competition? Is maybe another manufacturer or an auction house going to say, hey, we're doing similar things here. What about our show on maybe even a competing network? Are we going to see competing hobby reality shows? Maybe, Brian says, hey, I reconsidered, come back here and let me take on Ken in the, Leaf, in the Brian Gray show. So, I got to think, especially if it has early success like anything else, you're going to have those. It's going to expand to other folks in other parts of the hobby. So this might be sort of the first foray into maybe something that becomes even bigger. May we see, we have the golf channel, we have the cookie network. Might we see the sports card hobby network and just have a bunch of different shows,
Remember this, John, Pawn Stars has had at least one spinoff. The guy who does the car detailing. There was Counting his cars. Show, right? Counting cars. Then there was also the guy who fixes everything for him. I can't remember his name, but
I think Restoration something.
American Restoration, right? There's been spinoffs from Pawn Stars. There could easily be spinoffs from this. And hey, if one of those spinoffs is the Brian Gray show, that might be the best. That might be the best way to. That might be the second best character to put out there behind Ken Goldin, because as we know, as you put on the screen earlier, Ken's been doing his Instagram lives. He gets a lot of viewers on that, and that's a pretty small format compared to, and you have to sign up to follow somebody on there to know that they're going live, right? So I don't know. I can see it being the gateway to more, and it's not necessarily going to be competing shows. It's just going to help. Every show that is added on to the roster is going to help the ones that came before it. I think it's going to build up the genre itself. So I mean, I think we're the whole inning talk that's been going on for a while now. We're in the warm-ups of the TV show ball game, and who knows where it's going to end up. But hopefully we see a few different shows come out of this. It could take some time, and we're entertained for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. Any exposure the hobby gets. I mean, the hobbies went more mainstream the last couple of years than it ever has previously. I think that's a good thing. And with all due respect to Ken, he's been on my show as well. That's obviously that's the high end of the spectrum. I'm hoping, for even others that maybe don't live in that area or breathe that air, maybe we can see some other shows for, the non-high end where, someone who is kind of new to the hobby says, man, right now I can't afford a PSA 9 Mano, but, Griffey Jr. is my favorite player. And, I like to see a show that maybe caters to everyone across the board. I understand, that's going to be of particular interest when you're talking financial stuff, and no doubt it's going to do very well. It'll be interesting to see if we see, Topps or even another manufacturer say, hey, we're maybe we'll produce our own show or try to pitch something. I think, I think the door's going to be opened up to see who follows behind. That'll be the interesting part as well.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, honestly, what I watched all day yesterday while I worked was on YouTube, different guys like Sports Card Investor. But there's other guys too that are now filming their show exploits, going around the Miami show, buying and selling, filming the trades. And Jeff did that at Sports, and I'm becoming a fan of his. I mean, I wasn't really in the beginning. I was kind of like, he's saying things I already know, but not everyone knows some of it, and I disagree with some of it, obviously. But I'm finding him more entertaining, and watching him walk around the Miami show, buying stuff, I was like, this is kind of cool. And then, like, when the video ended, I was like, oh, that was fun. Yeah. But then some other kid who's a smaller time guy who's buying cards for like $400 and $600. It showed his 20 minutes of buying stuff at the show, negotiating. And I was like, this is kind of fun. So to me, that might be where there's something interesting. Imagine if a film crew followed me around the National spending $500,000. It could be really fun. And even if it's not fun, hardcore hobby people would probably enjoy seeing the art of the deal in a sense. And then you can look back at it 5 years later and laugh at the guy and say, what an idiot, he bought this, or he was a genius. Look at it. So it's kind of fun. But, I mean, there's already good content, John, to your point. There's good content out there on YouTube that I think people have totally not known exists. It's really fun. I spent 6 hours watching it while I worked yesterday. Not bad.
I watched the Jeff Wilson video as well, Brian, where he was at the Miami show. And in my opinion, it was the best content he's ever put out. Because it was real, it was real, it was unscripted, and it also gave you a bit of a glimpse into how he negotiates and when he walks up. In a way, it's intelligence, because if he comes up to your booth at a show, now you kind of know what he's coming with. What are the arrows in his quiver that he's going to use to negotiate with you? So same thing with Sasha T and his video logs of his exploits at the card shows. You kind of know what these guys are bringing to you when they want to transact with you. And it's some interest. Number one, it's good insight for that reason, if you ever do come across them at a card show in a negotiation. But it's also just fun to see how people buy and sell cards, because, otherwise you really only see what you see yourself at a card show. And sometimes, we saw Sasha do that big deal on the Charizard at the Dallas show. And that kind of blew up this whole transactional based content. And, Yeah, like you said, I think you could do a show could just be based on that. Do it by show, video crews following around different people. There's all sorts of ways to do it. But yeah, I think something with Brian Gray in it would be very, very. And I know this. I know this because I do a show and I have guests, and I know which guests are get the most views. And I can tell you, Brian Gray, every time you're on, the show does very well. We get a lot of views. So you'd be great subject matter.
That's nice of you to say, but I think the biggest point here is Ken's going to be awesome if they do this. But I would urge people to go look at that YouTube content. I'm telling you, there is more quality card-related, card geek content than there has ever been by a mile. It's not just people opening boxes anymore. It's actually really interesting content. You gotta love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube, you can find anything. We all know you can find how to fix your carburetor to product reviews. Now doing the behind the scenes and dealing at all these major shows. I mean, if it's not on YouTube, it probably doesn't exist. And we're seeing, like Brian said, we're seeing the expansion of hobby related content start to get up on that platform, and from dealings and all the like. And I'm old. I did my first show as a dealer at 15 years old, and if it's funny we didn't have social media back then. That's how old I am. But to think where shows were then and what we're seeing now, just price wise, what people are carrying around in them. I've said on my show the other day, if you had $5,000-$6,000 on you back in the day, you that was a lot of money. Now you're seeing teenagers with backpacks, and I'm scared to think what's in there. Would make me nervous carrying around that would be in PayPal or something else and transact but that's where we are, and that's just a testament to how successful right now the hobby is.
True story.
No doubt.
All right, so Brian mentioned the National and wanting to be filmed, the new Brian Gray National show. But speaking of it, it does indications now with Chicago lifting and some restrictions and kind of setting a timeline when things will be more up to speed. The National looks like it will be a go for the end of the last part of July, front part of August. I know, Brian, you've said before you were sort of on the fence whether you would attend. That was maybe a month or two ago. Jeremy, you go. Like, your thoughts, guys, on going. Does this change anything for you, or were you going as long as it's going to be held?
Well, I mean, we have to go if it's held. We're all vaccinated pretty much in our office. People who aren't wouldn't go. But so yeah, it's a different world today. I mean, we're not back to normal. Probably never be totally back to normal, but it's a different world. We would definitely go and support it. We have plans to support it. I'm still cautious. Like, I don't think it's going to be fully open. And I think if they're limiting it to 10,000 people a day, we're going to have a problem. We're going to have a huge problem. And I mean, I've heard solutions like sell people 3-hour passes where they can go in for 3 hours and they have to leave, and the next people come in for 3 hours and they leave, and then the next people come in for 3 hours. Not sure if that will work. I've heard maybe let them buy 1 day total. You can buy one day pass and that's it for the show. I've heard that. And then I've heard if you don't buy a VIP, you don't get in. And then I've heard everything. And 10,000 people, it's not going to work. I think it's a big problem. If I were them, I'm praying that if the limit's 10,000 people, including vendors, you push it till October, even if it's open, so we can have 30,000, 50,000, 40,000. This will be the greatest sports card show ever held if they're allowed to have people in there. And they just need to let people. And again, I voice my opinions. I'm not negative on it because I know that they're concerned that I'll be negative and try to stir the sentiment against it. I'm definitely not negative. I want to be there no matter what. If it's 10,000 people, I'll make money, so I don't really care. But for the sake of the hobby, this could be the big one. This could be the 1991 Anaheim National with 100,000 people wrapped around the building and fire marshals coming and the news crews outside. This could be that event if they let it.
And if they do it the way you're speaking, one of the ways you've heard, Brian, in terms of, day one only, day two only, that sort of thing. Imagine the scalping action on those early passes to get in and get first choice, unless they make them non-transferable, which adds a layer of logistics. So, I mean, that it's you need to be a vendor at that point to make sure you get in.
A dealer badge would be worth $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, and you laugh, but like a dealer badge could really be worth $3,000, like triple the price of a table. One badge could go for.
Yeah,
it sounds so stupid, but like it could happen. And at Comic-Con, I've paid $500-$700 a ticket before for like a dealer badge, and those badges are, $120, $150 when you buy them as your package. I paid $500-$600, no problem. I paid it, So
well, once you're there, you got to get in. So if that's what it comes down to, but well, let's be hopeful that it's not chaos, and that it is organized, and that that they can make this thing work for everybody.
Yeah. And I agree with Brian. I've said this already on multiple shows. I think, assuming the circumstances are going to be normal, it's probably going to be the most attended national. I'm hoping that Brian's wrong in terms of waves being let in, or you can go on Wednesday and not Friday. I hope it's as normal as it can be. I know we're dealing with unprecedented times with COVID-19. I get that. They want to have the show after not having it last year and having to cancel. They see other shows going on around the country, Dallas, Miami, other places, even Wisconsin. They want to make sure they don't, cancel 2 years in a row. But at the same time, I really hate to see anyone sort of excluded or get priced out. We can talk about people getting priced out in other parts of the hobby, whether it be wax or grading. I hate to see them get priced out from attending the Super Bowl of the hobby, let's say. And I understand, being it is the Super Bowl of the hobby, tickets are more money, right? They are before the pandemic, but to like have waves, or you can't be in on the floor at this time and you can, I think that's not a recipe for. I mean, that people are going to probably get upset with each other. You're probably going to have to break up skirmishes and maybe have more security to deal with someone that maybe tries to budge their way in, or feels like they're maybe even more important than that person. Hey, if you're in there, I should be allowed in, and I could see that if that's what they try to pull off, I could see that getting sort of ugly.
Same here. I mean, look what happens at Target over blaster packs.
Yeah.
There's a lot more product at the National than a couple blaster packs. So
yeah, and we talk about content creation. It's already a big hotbed for content creation on that floor. Maybe someone's has already made an appointment, like, hey, I'll meet you, we'll do an interview, we'll do some filming, and then they're like, hey, I can't get in on that day, and people are going to be upset. I mean, I could just see it getting sort of a potent with tempers, and not something I think the National wants. I understand they want to have the show too, but I'm sure all these discussions are probably going on, now in advance of that. I just hope we get what we're accustomed to. You get you buy your ticket. If you're media, you get your media pass. And you're obviously, if you're a show vendor, you've got that access. And I hope they don't do nothing too outside the norm as far as attendance wise. And I also know there's rules too. So hopefully they find that happy medium where no one has to be outside looking in and jealous of someone else who got in today and I didn't, type of deal.
Well, look at the comment 1 Million Cubs project just put up there. I mean, if that's indicative of what to expect, then there's, and I think it is, that's probably the best direction we have so far, because that's the rule. 10,000 people, million people last year.
And here's what's crazy. That shows at McCormick, which is the monster convention center. We're talking about the little Rosemont, about a quarter or half, not even a quarter of the size of McCormick. They're talking 10,000 people in McCormick. Good luck. It's going to be crazy. And again, if we can delay it till October and just cruise in October and have 30,000 instead of 10, that is a game changer in the quality of the show.
Yeah,
It really is.
Yeah, and I've heard that, Brian. It's a good point by you. I've heard that being a possibility. We'll see. If you're asking me, like, have it in October and be more normal, like, and then have it in July and sort of have, people wearing different colored bands that allow access at different times. I think I'd sign up for the October version. As I kind of just was on my soapbox a few minutes ago. I'd like to see that, but I have the time off already from work, and I'm planning on going. But it's not that far away now. We're here in May 8th here, and we're looking at a little over 2 months, and you got to make your if you're traveling, you got to make your travel itinerary, your plane fare, your hotel, and it's getting crunch time if you are planning on attending. I definitely, as I always say, with things going on like that, get that cheap travel insurance just in case something happens, and you can get your refund. But I'm to answer my own question about going, I'm sort of on the fence. If I feel like if it's not going to be a full-fledged everyone's welcome type of thing, I just would think about waiting to 2022 and going when things are definitely should be more back to some sort of normalcy that we're more accustomed to. So Yannick brings a great question up right here too. Should maybe they do 2 nationals? Maybe they do this July one, if they have to do it with sort of some restrictions and limitations on attendance, and then shoot for another one. Maybe not, maybe somewhere else even in October where there's less restriction. I know, Brian, you're in Texas. I'm going to be in Dallas in a couple weeks for that show, Kyle show. But maybe a Texas, I never understood why we had, I know there's, Dr. Beckett said there's some other things at play, but you got all these companies in the hotbed right there in that area. Like, it's the perfect place to have a national every so often. Obviously not necessarily every year, but
John,
every 4 or 5 years.
Do you think it's necessary even to call them the national? Like, the Dallas show is taking on a life of its own, as is the Miami show, right? These shows are, and now there's the Wisconsin Dells show. These shows are taken off. They're getting bigger and bigger. The guy from the Miami show was in Clubhouse a few nights ago talking about how it's grown. Brian was in the room at the same time, and he said we started off with 60 tables, then we went to 150 tables. Now we're at 600 tables, and we could do more. We have demand for more. So, the national is great because it's got the history, but there are these other shows that are becoming, I feel like, major stops on the tour. The card show tour itself is, you think about the PGA tour, the F1 tour. They go from city to city, week to week. Everybody goes, right? And I can see the card show tour becoming a similar sort of phenomenon where it doesn't matter what you call it, doesn't matter who's organizing it. It matters who's there, how many people are going through the gates, and the caliber of the vendors themselves. And then, of course, what's going to be really important now is the quality of the content that is coming from these shows and getting out there, which is really advertising and marketing these shows without the show promoters needing to really do anything. So yeah, I think that's where we're headed.
And like you said, these other shows have risen up. Let's be honest with you. They've risen up partially due to the national having to not take place last year, and all these states, we have different rules, and so they can pull this off and take advantage of another show not taking place. I'm not saying they're doing the show because there was no Atlantic City National, but I think people are craving that sort of size show that they're traveling to these things. I'm going to be in Dallas in a couple weeks. Other people are traveling even further than me, let's say. So it's we're seeing that. But when I think the National, and I'll kind of pose this to Brian. This is the show, where all the companies are. Leap is going to be there. PSA, SGC, BGS. It's kind of like the once a year, as it is in its current form. Everyone who has some sort of business in the hobby has to attend. It's the Academy Awards for movies, if you will. I mean, it's not an award show, but everyone that's anything in the hobby attends and is there to promote their brand and be out front of it. And so I don't think, like you said, I don't think these other shows are replacing the National, but I think they're taking advantage of a current time where there's restrictions in the states where the National was supposed to take place. We saw Atlantic City, New Jersey last year just get canceled. That convention center was basically a triage center during the early stages of the pandemic. So to me, the National is the National, and that's why it would bother me sort of if you had where you limited who could go in. We see hockey 99. Talking about if I had to buy a day package, you can miss out. You can miss out, especially on the high end of things, right? Hey, I went to get in there that day, I didn't, and that PSA 9 Clemente, someone else beat me to it. And it's gone. And I would have bought it had I been allowed in that day. And so, I don't like the fact that, if they limit like the attendance. I understand why they would do it, and it wouldn't even necessarily be their call. It would be the state and restrictions on that. But like Brian said, I think I'd almost rather delay it and then have no restrictions than have it and have restrictions.
You were going to pose a question to Brian.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if, how does he view that into these other Miami?
No. We're all going to go to the National. The manufacturers are all coming. Beckett and PSA will probably go. I don't know if they'll do anything. You may or may not see any on-site grading this year because why do they need to do that? Maybe they'll just take submissions to take home and put in the pile. See you in 2 years. But no, I think that part of the National is a big piece of it. But I will tell you, there's a chance no companies do redemptions this year, like the redemption programs. We don't need to. So like the business, it's going to change anyway. So it's not going to be the same National. This is going to be a transaction National. This is going to be one where things are actually trading, and it's more about buying from vendors than buying wax to break at the manufacturers to get redemption cards, which is what a big part of the show's identity has become, that, or redemption programs or whatever it is. I think that's not going to be a focal point like it was. But on what you were saying about these other shows, I had a lunch meeting yesterday, actually, and I will tell you, I will not be shocked if there is a show bigger than the National in terms of number of tables and people for real trading. I would not be shocked if there's a bigger show before the end of the calendar year, if there's a show bigger than the National happening in this country. I will not be shocked. It won't be the same because, again, it's not about having 100 autograph guests or having every manufacturer there. It's about creating the ultimate live marketplace. And not just that, but a place where the social element, which has become more important than ever in our hobby, can actually flourish. And I think that, if done correctly, imagine a monster show, but where you had some of the content like Comic-Con with panels, where consumers could come and interact with, a panel of manufacturers or a panel of the leading investment guys like Gary Vee or whoever. Imagine some of those kind of things, that kind of content, powered by a 1,000 to 1,200 table show. That's kind of intoxicating to me. I think that's very interesting, and I think that can be pulled off in another place besides Chicago. And I believe it's going to happen. Just my little belief based on my lunch yesterday. I believe that's going to happen.
Well, John, you mentioned that in terms of the corporate presence, that the National is the epicenter for corporate presence. I just think, though, that if there is a show that sprouts up, like Brian is talking about, or even the shows that we've already seen in the last few months, the corporate, the companies in the hobby, they're going to want to go to where the people are. So you may start a show thinking that it's, like Brian is saying, it's just for a live marketplace, but eventually that corporate presence they're going to make their way over there. You have to think, because that's where the people are, and that's a great marketing opportunity. So I can just see that definitely morphing towards that as well, and not in a negative way, in a positive way. So yeah, we're the National itself is one show on the stop, as I see happening down the road.
But it's the big one, right? It's the Daytona 500, all the cliche sports events. But listen to Brian talk about this hypothetical show, a new show that might be bigger. It sounds like there's going to be competition. It's obviously not going to be in conjunction with the National folks. It's going to be someone saying, "Hey, we're going to do what you do, and we're going to raise you one, right? Or raise you."
I don't think it's about competing with a National. I don't see it like that at all. No. I see it as, have you ever noticed when restaurants move to a city, they all move onto the same street, and they build these like restaurant meccas. And you often will say, what the hell's wrong with them? Why would they put Outback next to Chili's? Or Chewy's, out across the street from another fajita place? I don't understand. And it's not because they're saying we're going to take them head on, it's competition. They're saying when we build this, the people will come because it's part of this big picture. And so I look at it as hobby growth and having a differentiated product, because the National has something different about it. It's heavy in vintage. I would bet this show that I'm talking about is probably not heavy in vintage. It's probably heavier in modern, because that's where the money is. That's where, John Dillinger, they used to always ask him, why do you rob banks? And he said, that's where the money is. And I think that's where I think it's just a new era. And so I look at it as just a very different type of event that might transpire, but I see it as a complementary, more of a complementary relationship that's designed to help keep our interest for 12 months and not have it be this one monster show, and then we're on like local hiatus for 6 months or a year, and then we get back to a big show. Because even the Chicago shows are not what they used to be. The ones they've kind of changed. The ones that are put on by the other guys. So Dallas has kind of taken over that. And I think a big monster show could be interesting. But I certainly don't think it's competition for the National. I think they're very different products designed to actually help feed the interest in shows when you can sit on the internet and buy now. Someone in the comments earlier said, who needs a live show? I can just buy on the internet. Guess what, guys? There's way more content at the National than there is on eBay. Trust me, I went on eBay last night trying to buy a few things I'm starting to spec on, and there's 3 copies of the card on eBay. And I promise you at the National, there'll be 50. 100. I'll actually be able to buy that card and build a position. And again, that's me as an investor, but you're going to find stuff there you will never find on eBay. So we need these live shows again. And I think the more product, the better. And I don't see it as competition at all. If they were heads up on the same weekend, okay, fine. But that's not the goal. The goal is to create an exciting marketplace and keep adding to that by having more and more events that are big focal points for the hobby.
Yeah, and not to keep harping on this competition point, but I just want to say that you look at the F1 tour, and I'm speaking about F1 because I've been watching that documentary on Netflix. I think Monaco's the big one. That's maybe the National, but all those other stops on the tour, they're all huge productions and sellouts, and the people go crazy. So the National may still be the number one stop on the tour for a while, perhaps. But at the end of the day, I agree that they all feed the same system. Just like, look at in baseball, the American League and the National League, when they merge, and the NFC and the AFC, when they merge, they merge because the sum of the parts is great. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And I think that sort of concept applies here could apply to the sports card show circuit as it evolves.
Yeah, I mean, it's anything that promotes the hobby, and shows obviously do that, and the bigger ones do a even better job of it. I think that's good. I don't think the national, I don't want to speak for them, they're probably not looking at it so much as competition. I guess when these shows get bigger, like Brian says, and they start doing these different things, I just wonder if it then becomes, oh, they did that, we have to do that and more. If it becomes sort of an ingrained competition, maybe not so much outwardly, but even in that, if that was to happen, that's probably a good thing for the hobbyists, because the shows are just going to get better, that with that inward competition. So, I guess that's a good thing rather than a negative thing. I put the link, folks, in the chat to call in. It's also scrolling on the bottom of the screen as well. Any thoughts from you guys out there about the National? Going, on the fence, not going, thoughts on maybe only being able to get in at certain time? Has any of the recent news changed your thought process and, where you're at? My advice to you, if you are going, probably start looking at making all your travel arrangements very soon, because I think everyone, when that news comes out, everyone's going to start making their, when they get that green light, it's time to start getting your ducks in a row. So call in. The shows. I'm going to Dallas in a couple weeks. I've never been to Texas. I'm a New York City kid, but looking forward to that. And even that show that Kyle's done, I want to be an infomercial for him. But that thing has sort of taken a life of its own, and a lot of content creation. We talked about that coming from there. And I know Brian's been there numerous times. That's Ryan's backyard, and I've heard him say, "Hey, I'm going to get these today. If you got any, I'm buying," and that sort of thing. So I'm looking forward to that. We do have a call, so let me bring him in. At King NASCAR, Logan,
hey,
right?
Yep. Doing all right.
Morning.
Yeah,
Morning,
my buddy
Logan. How are you?
Doing okay. Hey, I'm going to be at the National. There's an aspect of the National that is really important for me, and it's seeing all my friends. There's a lot of people that I don't get to see, except for once a year during the National. So, missing everybody last year, this year is going to be awesome, and it's going to be great to see everybody.
No doubt.
Yeah, community. That's why the card shows will never die, because people love to see their friends and transact in person. And like Brian said earlier, the selection you get at a card show, number one, it's more vast than you see on eBay, but it's right there. You can touch and feel and look and inspect. You can't do that on eBay as easily. So.
No doubt. Well, see, like for me, in March, I shut down last year. I didn't leave. I didn't go to any hobby function. I was out of the limelight for a year. But I went to the Dallas show, Kyle's show, and that was the first time I'd seen any of these people in a year. And I wasn't ready to hug them quite yet. I'm getting closer now that I'm vaccinated. But it was like there was something special about seeing, even the ones I don't like, there was something special about seeing people again. That I forgot how much I love that part of the business. And as much as I want to think it's about making money and just being an animal, so I forgot the social element. I really forgot. And I miss people. I miss you, Jeremy. I miss everyone. I mean, it's going to be an amazing thing to see all my friends again that I've spent the last 25 years doing, 30 years doing this with. I mean, that's amazing,
I always, when I go to the Toronto Expo, which, Brian comes to, you go there on the Thursday night to set up your booth or claim your booth or get your showcases, whatever. I remember, Brian, I'm at my booth and I see you coming from the end of the aisle, walking towards me, and it's hugs, it's high fives, it's those opening moments when you first see the people, set the tone for the whole weekend, and I miss it. I miss it too.
Yeah, and there's also a food aspect too. Of course, you've got Gibson's right across from the convention center. Yeah. So I can't wait for that. And I'm also a White Castle freak, so they've got White Castles up there. And they don't have them where I live.
Now, if they required me to eat that to go to the show, I think I'll stay home that weekend and buy on eBay. I tried to get those once. I was going to the casino, and coming home, it was like 2 a.m. And of course, that's the only food you can eat in Indiana at 2 a.m. So I bit into one, and I literally couldn't swallow it. I had to let it out. So I envy you as a man of great strength for being able to swallow one of those things, because that's rough.
It gets even better. Back in 2009, I was inducted into the White Castle Hall of Fame. So there you go.
Well, and all joking aside, too, Logan, you mentioned about meeting people, and I think we all can agree on that sentiment. The first national I went to, that one day was just talking to people. I didn't even really buy any cards, and I saved that for the following day. But you do what the PSA has, like a get together, a dinner, register, like a celebration that I know you go to, Val goes to. I hope all those events don't get canceled, even if the show does take place. I guess that's my point, is if the national is going to happen, I want it to be as close to what everyone's accustomed to as possible. I know that might be wishful thinking or a big ask, but I'm hoping it's as close to that as we can get.
Well, I haven't even told Val this yet, but I talked to Cassetta at PSA about the set registry luncheon, and she told me they are not going to have it this year, which makes me very sad.
Yeah. Well, that stinks, but hopefully as more people getting vaccinated, I saw in the news yesterday we're at like 40% as a country, and relative to other countries, actually that's very good. And some numbers are coming down in some areas. And so hopefully, let's put it this way, not to get ahead of ourselves, but I hope 2022, we're not really having these discussions as much anymore. Just talking about the shows, where they are, not whether they're going to happen or if, our luncheon's canceled or not canceled, sort of thing. So.
Yeah, talking about the vaccines, I just wish people would go ahead and do it. I mean, I know there's a lot of hesitancy, especially here where I live in Memphis. Now they're offering things like a chance to win a new car if you go get your vaccine, Walmart gift cards. Seriously, that's what they're doing here to try to get people to get vaccinated.
I think I know the answer. If you don't get the vaccine, you have to eat White Castle. You have to eat more. You have to eat it every day until you get the vaccine. That'll cost them. That your hesitancy will be White Castle, not the vaccine.
Back in the 80s, we were coming back. Me and some of my buddies were coming back from the St. Louis show, and I coaxed the guy who was driving to stop at White Castle. So we stopped and we put him in the trunk because I was taking him home, right? And the other guy that was in the car with us goes, "What is that smell? My God, who farted?" And I go, "Man, that's the White Castles." He goes, "Oh God, how can you eat those things?"
Oh, well, good luck to you, sir. Good luck to you.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Logan. Well, hopefully we'll see you. We'll see you in Chicago.
For sure.
Yeah. And I'm going to be in Dallas too. So I'll see you guys.
All right. There you go. All right. Thanks for Logan calling in. So, that it's the tagline of Sports Card Nation. The hobby is the people. I didn't just come up with that by accident, right? Like Brian said, the shows have become a social event as well as an opportunity to buy and sell cards as well. And so, again, that going back to that, I hope we, it's going to be interesting, with the pandemic, people are going to be maybe a little more guarded, maybe a little more fist bumps than hugs and handshakes or what have you. But, I love the shows. Like I said, I did my first show as a 15-year-old dealer. So you don't have to sell them to me. I think they're a big part of the fabric of the hobby. And I hope, we get back to normalcy with them, and especially on the national front.
Hear, hear.
All right, so it's becoming a big thing. We're seeing it make national news. The NFTs, Topps now entered the arena with their foray. that was a little clunky in its launch. And I'm not an NFT guy, but full disclosure, as I said on my show, I did try to buy a few Topps packs to no avail. Maybe that was a sign for me to not do it, not being able to get them. But I'm a real guy. Like if it doesn't exist, if I sort of can't hold it, I'm not a big believer necessarily in it. Your thought. I mean, obviously NFTs are successful at the moment. We see what Top Shot's doing. What do we think long term with these? Does the bloom come off the rose at some point, or is this something that's going to be the real deal for a real long time?
Go ahead, Brian.
I mean, listen, personal preference for me does not dictate what we need to do for the industry. So we will be launching NFTs. We are trying to make a final choice on the vendor, and it's so hard because there's so many ways to tackle this. And even once you decide the marketplace you want to sell through, it's also, do we want to issue it in packs, or do we want to take every card and make them all 101s and auction 101s of every NFT? Like we're saying metal football. We take every card in the set and we make it a 101 NFT. Do we want to make it ultra limited like that, or do we want to make packs that are much cheaper than physical packs, obviously, and we put the cards in at the same ratio, and we basically sell metal football the same exact way in packs, just like Topps did? And I think there's an option. I mean, there's a lot of ways to tackle this, but we will 100% be in that space less than 60 days, maybe as little as 30. And now, with that being said, I'm not confident in the long term, but I also preach to people all the time. Let's not dictate how people collect or invest. We have to be in a marketplace where we have to be okay when people have their own things they collect. People laugh at us as card collectors all the time, right? People who collect other things, they think we're nuts for buying cards. So, like, the same thing here. If someone wants to buy NFTs, go for it. If they see some intrinsic value there, I've been saying to short Bitcoin since it was 800. So I've been completely wrong for about a year or two or four now. So I've been completely wrong. So obviously I shouldn't be giving investment advice on Bitcoin or NFTs probably, But with that being said, I'm not a huge fan personally. I won't be investing. Everything I've done on Top Shot has been quick flip. Even things I bought and sold were quick flips. But, I think I'll sit on the sidelines personally, but I'm going to make the stuff because I think collectors need to have a choice. And if collectors want to choose that, I'll support it and say, hey, if you buy what you like, you never lose.
I have pretty much similar thoughts as you from a personal preference. I'll just add that to me, they're not sports cards. I don't even really have an understanding of what they are. I don't have that in my mind as to what are you actually getting besides an image or a short video on your screen. And I say that, I'm not being judgmental. I really just don't know what it is that you own. So the fact that the Topps and Leaf are going to be in the space, it's a different category to me altogether. Not to say that some money won't go from back and forth. It probably will. But to me, a sports card is something that you can hold in your hand, and it has measurements, and that's what I collect. So, but hey, again, no judgment. If people want to collect NFTs, I mean, hey, if that's what gets you off, get off by them. That's very cool. I have no problem with it.
Well, I'll tell you one other thing that we're doing that no one's ever done before, I don't think, is, about 10 years ago, I bought a very famous rock and roll photo collection from a world famous photographer. These were images he took, like 1963 Beatles European tour, 1979 U2's first tour of the UK, back when Bono had lamb chop sideburns. So I have these images never before seen, never published. So we're going to offer those as NFTs also, as one-of-a-kind NFTs. But the great part is you actually own the rights to the photo. So you actually own the publicity rights to the photo. You could do like Getty and license that photo to someone. You'll actually own all the rights. Like, that's pretty cool. The hard part with a Leaf metal card on there is you don't own the rights. Like you say, Jeremy, it's hard to understand. You own the only digital copy, or one of only so many digital copies of it. That's a little harder for people to get their arms around. But when you actually own the photo, that's a different zip code. because there's actually potential revenue that could come from that. It's actually, there's something really there. Or people who attach, like Bryson DeChambeau, who I just signed exclusive to an autograph contract for memorabilia, great golfer. When he did his NFTs, some of them had events attached to it. We got to meet Bryson for lunch, or you got a set of personalized golf clubs of the Bryson model and brand, whatever. So I mean, there's things attached to them that give real physical value to the non-physical. But I think, there's going to be ways to innovate here where I think it will start to make more sense. But it's very hard right this minute to fully get our arms around and understand the huge amounts of money.
Yeah, I like that too, Brian. I like that there's a physical aspect, or you own the rights, or like you said, possible opportunities to profit from what you own, your property. And so I hope that's where NFTs go. But you summed it up too. Hobby, how you choose, right? Hobby your way. Something I've said. It may not be for me. I know it's not Jeremy's thing either, but as a company, in your case, Brian, with Leaf, you have to offer it to the collector masses and let them make the decision whether they want it or they don't want it. And so while I may not like it, there's 5 other people who do. And it, like you said, it shouldn't be one, up just because I don't like it, no one else can partake in it.
Well, and I saw a comment on the side.
That feasible, not fair. And
I saw someone said Brian can't explain what an NFT is, but Leaf is going to start producing them. You know what? I'm not a hockey fan. I can't tell you all that much about hockey, to be honest with you, but Greg does a phenomenal job providing hockey products in the marketplace. And so what I'll tell you is we have people who do understand NFTs better than me. What I'm a big picture guy, and I know, is that when people want to collect something, if you close your ears because you don't understand it, then you're not a very smart business person, but B, you don't give a crap about your customer. You've got to provide customers what they want in the form they collect it. Cut signature cards. Why wouldn't you want the whole document? People tell me all the time. And I tell them, because people collect cards. They want it in the format they collect.
Yeah.
So I would say to someone like Foulball there, who basically said, he doesn't understand. He's selling it. So what is this world coming to? I would say, me personally, I don't have to understand it. I pay really smart people to understand things that cater to the consumer. You want to talk to me about football draft? I'll talk you under the table. But if you want to talk about NFTs, I got someone who can talk you under the table.
Yeah, well said, Brian.
Don't assume because I don't know doesn't mean that we don't know. It just means I'm humble, and I'm not really humble. Let's be honest. No one's ever accused me of that. But let's just say I'm smart enough to know that I'm not smart about everything.
Well said.
Here's a comment.
Go ahead.
From Yamwax, and it's funny. I don't know if he heard me talking with Dr. Beckett on yesterday's show, but I kind of joked. Me and Dr. Beckett were talking about NFTs, and he said very similar to what Brian said. It's not his thing, but it's going to be huge in the hobby, and that's what drives what we see. But I joked about we might see graded NFTs, and so here's a comment from Yamwax that says, I think grading companies may eventually issue NFTs with graded slabs to serve as a title to a physical card. eBay will eventually manage the transfer. I mean, that's an interesting concept. I think we're seeing the rise of NFTs. Other companies are going to want to get in on the technology in some form or fashion.
To me, that's what an NFT is. It's title, because it's based on the blockchain, and title can't be disputed on the blockchain. So that's what I see. So title's one thing, but underlying that title, is there a physical object, or is there just a moment in history, like a moment on a Top Shot moment sort of thing? What underlies that title? And like what Brian was talking about with his music example, there's actually something there that you have title to, and the NFT is simply the title. It's the manifestation of the title. That makes sense to me.
I'm about to do something really stupid. I'm going to give you the $1 million idea for our space. The $1 million idea is to be the title company. And it's to say, John, Jeremy, anybody out there, your high-end assets that you collect, let us put your ownership, register your ownership with us through the blockchain so that you have secure title to your assets and a record of that. And you become the title company.
And there are, right? There are these title companies, not for sports cards, but for the other NFTs out there. Like,
sure.
like Top Shot is the title company.
But I'm saying you can take assets in your collection, your PSA graded Gretzky PSA 9 Opeachy, and from your image, I can register your title on the blockchain and act as a title company to register your ownership and to basically create NFTs for individuals at a central marketplace that acts as like a registering agent for these assets, and not just graded cards, autographed Babe Ruth ball, so-and-so's game used jersey. It can be any comic books. It can be anything you collect. It becomes a collectible registry. See, I'm blowing it now. I've just lost millions of dollars. Thanks, guys. I lost millions of dollars sitting here brainstorming. But I mean, I think when we talk about the ownership and that, like that register, like that proof of ownership being a high value that people could see in these assets, like I see that as a gaping hole where people have their assets. You might like that, Jeremy, right? Have some of your assets, the ownership, like blockchain certified. They're your assets.
Sure, Brian. Yes, but I'd rather just know that I have that actual asset, that sports card, in my closet, in my safety deposit box. I'd rather just know I have the physical thing in my possession versus some smart contract telling me that I own it.
But is that title? Think about this long term with high end collectibles. Could that title have a premium valuation on your asset? Like a car without a title,
yeah,
it's very hard to sell. Very hard.
I'd like to see him even put like an insurance element into it. Like you can insure what you're hold the titles to, and that way, if something was to happen to them, you have proof that you own that card. If God forbid there was a fire or a theft or robbery, you have some provenance to your claim. Obviously, you got to pay for your insurance, but at least the insurance company couldn't debate you. No, you didn't have a PSA 10 Mantle card, but now you have sort of proof.
When I see Rex in the comments says, how important is the title if you hold the card in your hand? Do I really need the blockchain to tell me? Well, if I have a car in my driveway, is that enough? Can I just sell it? Do I have to sell a title to my house? Or I got my house, it's right here. Look, I'm living in it. Sure, let me just go sell it. At some point, when these assets grow in value, whether it's a Banksy piece of artwork, which again, all the art fraud in the world, imagine if there had been a blockchain element that for 200 or 300 or 500 years could have kept these artists' works on file. And again, this is so big picture, like none of us are going to be around, we're going to be dust. But like our grandkids, what if they could actually track our collectibles?
But there's a couple, BG, there's a couple issues there, right? In terms of a house, you know they all look different. They all have their address, right? As far as a vehicle, they all have their serial number. So I hear what you're saying, and I think I'm with you. But every single card that would be produced would need its own special serial number, and that's why the NFT space makes sense to a lot of people, because they all do have their special code. Whereas all the Luca Prism bases out there, you can't tell them apart. They're fungible. So that's the key difference.
On hard cards. Now, when you have a graded card, if Mike Baker can slap a sticker on something to try to add value that it's more premium or something, why can't we slap a blockchain number on the back of the slab? Yeah. So that you can have the blockchain address right there. So there's ways to do this. It's so interesting. But that's why we have to think of our business in like an evolution. And we're going over on time, I think, but like the evolutionary thing, like just because we've been just cardboard for so long, we're allowed to expand and think outside the box. And half this stuff's going to be foolishness, but the other half could change the way collectibles work. And I promise you, we don't have the history to look back 300 years of trading cards. But I promise you, in the art world, the amount of money that's been lost because of fraud, if they had something 200 years ago that would have made sure a Picasso was really a Picasso and tied it to that piece, it would have changed everything. And blockchain would have been the answer back then. And today, for 200 years from now, it is probably the answer. And that's the easiest way to get your arm around how this could actually be relevant long term.
I'm going to bring, we got Texas Card Dude Brad. I'm going to bring him up, bring him in. We're kind of coming down the home stretch here. Any thoughts to add as we kind of wrap it up, Brad?
Yeah, so Brian hit the nail on the head, and think about what's happened over the past, 48 hours in our hobby. Why is PSA so popular? They're set registry. Okay. So who has the largest picture collection besides PSA? eBay. Who has said they're going to get into the NFT market? eBay. Get ready. I guarantee. If anybody's doing it right now, Brian, it's eBay. And somebody jumped in and said on my show this week and said eBay's about to go into. Hey, Logan, somebody's about to go into, or eBay's was about to go into grading, and had that because the signs are there to go into grading. Get ready for eBay to do a couple of things before the end of the year that will jump start a whole different type of thread. And for those of you who having a hard time trying to think about blockchain, if you think about in the business world, there's something called a V card, a virtual business card. That's another way to think of an NFT is as a virtual business card or a virtual handshake between two people. So it's just in a digital image, and it can be made as a, for lack of a better phrase, a GIF where it can be animated. So, and then you can embed whatever information you want into that, and make it a one of a kind, similar like a laser imprint on a diamond. So that's all I got. I'm out. Brian, good to talk. Good to see you. Good to see you, Jeremy. I'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes. Well, we're up. We're a little over an hour. Any kind of closing thoughts? You guys are going to be doing this again tonight, Jeremy and Brian. So this was just sort of the pre-fight, if you will.
Yeah, I like to think of it as the foreplay to our entire evening. And the best part is that's why they call it after hours.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks, John. I'll plug Dave Slipka will be joining me on the main show at 10 o'clock Eastern tonight. A good buddy of Brian's and somebody who's been in the hobby for 40 years. He was with Beckett for 22 years. So I'm excited. And he's a wealth of knowledge. I chatted with him a couple nights ago, and we could have gone on for many more hours. The guy has just got lots of great experience. So he's going to be on. And then afterwards, Brian Gray will be joining me on the After Hours show. So I'm looking forward to some great content tonight.
No doubt. I'll see Brian. I'll be in Dallas in a couple of weeks, hoping to get to meet you, talk to you. Hope to see us a lot of other people there. Like Brian said, that's part of the show experience in general, and hopefully the National, as we talked about today, is as close to what we are accustomed to as always. So, with that being said, again, I want to say in closing, Brody. I know you tend to watch these even when you're not on them. I hope you're doing that. I hope you're feeling better, and hope to see you back in the saddle very soon.
We miss you, Brody.
With that being said, everyone else, thank you for watching. If you're listening to this in audio form after the fact, we're live every Saturday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. We obviously, as you notice, we take call-ins. We'd love to have you call in. But with that being said, we're going to call it a day. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Jeremy. And we'll see everyone else in a week.
Thank you.
Be good, guys.